Okay, good morning. Today is Monday, December 14th. This is session 11, meditation 102. Very special day, very special guest. Um, let's start by setting our intentions with the four measurable prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. Um, we'll do a shorter meditation this morning and then bring our guest on, who is Dr. Vesna Wallace. Um, She's a senior professor of religious studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara, where she's ran the graduate studies program. Besides her work as a teacher and scholar, she's also a noted author and translator, and we're very lucky to have her. She's going to be discussing the topic of shunyata, or emptiness, which we've touched a little upon. It's a really complex but essential topic in Buddhism. And she's going to talk about it in detail and also take questions. So in the meantime, let us sit. We'll probably only do about 7 minutes. And let us begin now. Okay, excellent. Um, so like I said, we're going to discuss emptiness somewhat in the context of the second noble truth, which we've discussed. The first noble truth, the first teaching of the Buddha, that in life there's suffering. Samsara is permeated by suffering, right? The second noble truth is often translated in many different ways. And it's really explaining the cause of suffering. And the explanation is often very different depending where you read it. But one of the explanations that I've read is that because we don't understand our ultimate or true nature of existence, or true nature of reality, which is emptiness. And that's a very vast, complicated, and deep topic. And that's why we have an expert today. Dr. Vesna Wallace is Senior Professor of Religious Studies at University of California, Santa Barbara. She's a noted scholar, author, and translator, and she's also one of my favorite people in the world. And we're really, really happy to have her today. Vesna, welcome.
Good morning and good evening for those who are on a different time zone. And thank you, Michael, for inviting me to your, what looks like a very successful webinar. And just to tell to everyone that Mr. Imperioli is a long-time practitioner and a student of Dharma who has studied with many great living teachers. So you're all lucky to have him, and I'm lucky to know him and his wife as well. And so here we are. Let me begin then with something that already Mr. Imperioli mentioned, and that is a second noble truth, or a cause of suffering. You know, you have even when we use word suffering, it sounds so heavy, right? Like you can get depressed. Like what does it even mean in Buddhism? I mean, of course, it means some kind of a raise of feelings, uncomfortable, undesirable feelings that we are experiencing. And it can be from a very blatant suffering to very, very subtle suffering, like standing on your feet for a long time. Even that is included under the term of suffering. So when it comes to the second noble truth, what we are really talking about, as Michael said, is emptiness, or no self, or ignorance of that. Um, lack of inherent existence. So what is meant by spiritual ignorance in Buddhism is mistaking that which is impermanent as permanent, and mistaking that which is not I, myself, as I or as myself. I mean, intellectually, we all know that things are not permanent, right? Things get weared off, we get old, the circumstances of our lives change, but somewhere deep down, we still expect things to last, particularly the good things, the desirable experiences, and so on. And same also with sense of I. We hold onto it, and that becomes one of the causes of suffering. But now, according to Buddhism, as you have already probably by now studied, is that all composite phenomena are causes of suffering. Now, what is meant by composite phenomena? Meaning that all the phenomena that come into existence that due to causes and conditions, which includes us. It's because of union of mother's ovum and father's semen and mother's right season and consciousness, and so uniting with this, right? And so from an individual to all that kind of phenomenal emptiness, everything is impermanent. And it is impermanent because it is empty of inherent existence. So, which means if things come into existence upon causes and conditions, they will last for as long as there are causes and conditions that maintain their existence. And then due to when new causes and conditions arise, then things perish. So, which means that everything that is impermanent also is a composite phenomenon, and therefore lacks some kind of permanent, independent, autonomous existence. And that lack of permanent, autonomous, independent existence of some kind of phenomenon, whether here that makes a person or anything else there in our environment, all phenomena, right? Then they're empty of inherent existence. Now, how is emptiness defined, apart from absence of inherent existence, is that emptiness, we have to understand, is not some kind of a thing. It is said in Buddhism that this is the ultimate nature of all phenomena. And that is kind of our equality of all things, of all phenomena are equal on that basis, that nothing is everlasting and nothing has some kind of true independent identity, which is spoken about in other Indic tradition as Atman or as a kind of some kind of a permanent self. So emptiness is to be understood as a way in which phenomena exist, not as some kind of substance that constitutes a thing. So emptiness is neither a thing, nor is it nothingness. So for something to have inherent existence is to exist in its own right, independent. It has to be some kind of independent, unchanging phenomenon. So according to Buddhism, there are two things that are like this, that non-composite phenomenon. One is space. Space has, nothing has created the space, right? You cannot destroy space, you can cut it, it never perishes, it permeates everything, it's always here, right? And nirvana. So these are two things or phenomena that are not composite, but everything else is composite. So if things were not empty of inherent existence, we would live in a very static world. Nothing would change. There would not be rising of phenomena, ceasing of phenomena, duration of phenomena. None of this we would live in a dead, static world. But because there is emptiness, then we have this world of activity and possibility for change. If there were no emptiness, if we were inherently as we are when we were born, with all our mental afflictions, with our ignorance, there would not be possibility for enlightenment or awakening. But because there is nothing inherent in us, our body, our feelings, our minds, nothing that makes up this psychological constitution of a human being can be called self, right? And therefore, including our ignorance, including our mental afflictions, which means none of that is inherent to us, and therefore it is subject to change, and we can change. We can get liberated, we can get knowledge, and we can get free of mental afflictions. So nothing that is impermanent and that is not controllable by its own wishes can be autonomous self, some kind of changeless identity. And this is our problem, right? Because we grasp onto that which is not a self as if it were the self, and that is this ignorance. Now, if you look at your own mind, body, constitution, everything is in transition, everything is in change. Our body, our form is a constant flux of change. Every 68 millisecond of something is changing in your body. If you look in your albums, family album, and you see pictures of yourself when you were a 5-year-old, 12-year-old, or 20 years old, depends what age you are, you're not the same person. You wouldn't even recognize yourself if somebody didn't tell you this is your own picture, right? Because body has changed, and it's changing. These cells in the body are changing all the time. So there is nothing there to grasp in the body as a self. It is subject to decay, to old age, to death, to illness. So this cannot be some kind of your permanent identity. Same with the feelings, same is with discerning phenomena, with our memories, thoughts, hopes. All of this is in consciousness. All of this is in a constant flux of change. So then where is the self? If we, this permanent self, right? If each of these were the self, then we would have many selves. But it's not the case. So we can find it somewhere outside of body, feelings, and we cannot find it within anywhere, or outside or inside, right? So which means then human being is a series of related events. And that series of related events is called dependent origination. And that is nothing other but emptiness. So we can talk about emptiness as kind of dependent origination. Therefore, we can't say that emptiness is nothingness, that is some kind of nihilism, because there is something there. And what is there is this process of continuing rising and ceasing, rising and ceasing, right? This event. Now, as I said, the body consists of the constantly changing processes. It is in the state of continuous flux. Seemingly solid body consists of these subatomic particles, and their span of existence is less than a trillionth of a second. So where is Vesna there, right? If now I'm talking about myself, but you can ask yourself, where am I in this split of a second, or something has already changed? Same comes to the feelings. And the feelings includes both sensations that arise from the body and mental, psychological feelings. And feelings can be pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And they arise upon causes and conditions, right? Pleasant feeling arises when our hope and expectations are fulfilled, when something pleasant is happening to us, somebody is praising us, we have earned something that we haven't think it was something good happened, right? And then feelings of displeasure or anger or dissatisfaction arise when conditions change. So it means that feelings themselves constantly rise and cease. We don't have one feeling and we throughout a life, right? That we say, this is I, this is my true self. When it constantly is in a flux, it's contingent upon causes and conditions. Same with discernment, because this is a third kind of aggregate constituent that makes up this mind-body complex. And discernment is a recognition and interpretation of the sensory input that we receive through our sense faculties. Can be visual sense faculty or can be mental object, right? So it processes our sense objects by classifying them and labeling them. Oh, this is computer. Oh, this is Michael on my computer screen, right? But that too rises in dependence upon sensory inputs, upon the meeting of the sense faculties with the sense objects. And that too is in a constant flux. If I direct my attention now to my bookshelf, the sensory input or discernment of Michael at the screen is not at the moment present, right? So it's in the flux. Nothing there can be called I. There is no some Vesnaness there that you could recognize. This is a true, ultimately existent element of a Vesna that makes Vesna Vesna, right? Same is thoughts, hopes, fantasies, memories. All these mental events are transitory and they do not have independent some kind of existence. I am not my thoughts, just like I'm not my feelings, right? Feelings comes and go. Where did it go? I can't grasp, it's lost, right? It has vanished. Same with the thought. When thought arises, where did it come actually from? Yeah? And where did it perish? But we tend to identify ourselves with our religious views, philosophical views, political views, with our bodies, with our feelings. Oh, you hurt my feelings. But if you observe a feeling, when feeling itself arises and you just take it as your object and you look at it, you won't see yourself there. It will be just a feeling. And then you know what happens? It vanishes. The moment you take it and your object of observation, it vanishes. And why it vanishes? Because you are no longer, you have separated yourself from it, you are looking at it, and because you are not feeding it with this sense of I, it's gone. Because it was never you. It was never you. It's just an event. So everything is just a series of events. And same comes to consciousness. Consciousness is a process of event of cognizing objects, whether physical objects or mental objects. It is not some kind of unitary, independent entity called self or I, but we have that feeling, right, that it is I. So consciousness is simply a continuum or a stream of the moments of awareness which are not mutually connected by some permanent and independent entity, call them self or a cognizer or a mind, right? It arises, it depends upon a sense faculty, sense object, and a previous moment of consciousness, right? So I can't cognize visual objects if there are no visual objects, or if visual sense faculty is not present, or if I am a corpse, right? So all of these conditions have to come together for whether it's a visual consciousness, auditory consciousness, or gustatory consciousness, taste, right, or a touch. All of this depends upon causes and conditions. if I touch something hot, right, sensation, this awareness that my stove is hot will arise, but the moment I remove my hand, that feeling of hot is not there, and awareness is gone. So all these different types of 6 types of consciousness, right? 5 types of consciousness and a mental consciousness, nothing exists on its own, but is a series of events. Now, problem is that we grasp onto it, right, as some kind of a self, whether it's my feeling and so on. So Nagarjuna, who was a great Indic master of a 2nd century Common Era, who kind of really elaborated this idea of emptiness, kind of classify it and put it in a coherent structure, said that nowhere, I repeat, nowhere and never things are found to arise from themselves. Why would something arise from itself? It already exists, right? If I already exist, why would I now arise from myself or anything, right? If it's already existence. But also things do not arise from something different. So grapefruit will not arise from an apple seed, right? But also things do not arise from both, meaning from themselves and from something else. It makes absolutely no sense, right? But also phenomena do not arise without a cause, which means things arise upon causes and conditions. But these causes and conditions cannot be called self, this permanent identity that makes Vesna Vesna, right? Because they themselves are impermanent. They themselves arise upon causes and conditions, and their causes and conditions arise upon other set of causes and conditions, and it goes ad infinitum. It's infinite, right? Because samsara is infinite, has no beginning. So nothing then, everything arises upon causes, conditions that themselves are impermanent, that themselves are conditioned, right? And it goes on backward if you want, right? And that what is present now is also cause or a condition for something else to arise. So things then never arise from a single cause. Because if you arise from a single cause, then one could say, okay, maybe that is that cause could be some kind of a seed, permanent self, right? But it's not, because things need causes and conditions. Look at the plant. Plant doesn't arise from itself and doesn't arise just from a seed. There needs to be other conditions. There has to be good soil. There has to be water. There has to be sunshine, right? So there have to be a set of causes and conditions for a plant to come existence. So with just like this comes, how to say, this analogy applies to everything else. And so the inherent nature of phenomena then is not found in their conditions either. So for as long as a thing is not reason, then conditioning factors do not arise either, right? So you become a father or a mother, or one becomes father or mother when there is a child. Otherwise, which means, or you are a child in relation to your fathers, and you are a sister or a brother in relation to your sibling. But before you had a brother or a sister, you were not a sibling, right? Which means that everything, all of our relations too are a condition in relation to something else. So whatever we want to identify ourselves with any role, not only with this body-mind complex, but also role in a society, also we are not permanently nothing. If there were some true Vesnaness in Vesna, then when I go, or if I were inherently teacher, professor, right? Then when I walk on the street, on the streets, let's say, of Cairo, everybody would know, this is Vesna, this is Professor Vesna. But no, which means I am only conventionally by conceptual or linguistic designation. I'm Vesna. Somebody called me Vesna, so I'm Vesna, right? And I'm a female in relation to males or Herma or somebody who is identifies with two genders, right? So I'm not even inherently female. If there were no other genders, but only female, we wouldn't call ourselves female, right? Or same you can say for a male. So nothing that I think creates my identity is really I. It's always relational. Just like in a dream, happiness and sufferings depend on dream objects, right? We are dreaming something that's pleasant and pleasant feelings arise, or dangerous. We dream some dangerous situation. Let's say somebody's trying to kill you, right? Then unpleasant feeling arises. But upon awakening, these objects are known to actually not exist. Oh, that was just a dream. What a relief, right? Or, oh, sad. I wish that dream lasted longer. But still, we recognize that this was a fantasy. That was a mind's creation, yes, right? So then any phenomena which arises in dependence on some other phenomena does not exist in a manner in which it appears, which means all things are dream-like appearances. All phenomena, all our experiences are dream-like because they're conditioned. So for an inherently existent or inherently non-existent phenomenon, the conditioning factor is logically impossible. Something that doesn't exist or is impossible to exist. What would be its logically its cause or condition, right? Why would that want to arise if it's inherently non-existent? But nothing is inherently non-existence and nothing is inherently existence. Because if something is inherently non-existence, does not need a condition to make it already, and no condition can logically relate to something that is inherently non-existent. So it makes no sense, right? But then again, in what way do things exist if things are empty of inherent existence? Again, all phenomena exist merely by conceptual designation, by our superimposition. Oh, this is ugly, this is attractive, this is desirable, this is undesirable, right? This is I. Don't you dare to touch me, that's my body, I didn't give you permission, right? Or how can you talk to me? I am a scholar, blah, 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 or I am a big executive, don't you know who I am, right? We continually identify, and that's a big problem. From this comes attachment, comes aversion. If somebody wants, somebody we see as disrespectful to that which I cherish so dearly, right? Or something I identify with. And from all of these self-identifications come all of these mental afflictions, jealousy, greed, attachment, hatred, right? Malice. And these give rise to negative karma. Negative karma always results in suffering. Suffering gives rise to mental afflictions. And this is what makes samsara. And that's that ignorance of grasping onto that which is not I as I. But according to Buddhism, all phenomena, when I say all phenomena, it means even the Buddha, Nirvana, these are also imputed by the mind. We speak about the Buddha because we talk about beings who are not enlightened, right? About ordinary beings. So somebody's Buddha only in relation to ordinary beings. If we are not ordinary beings, that concept of a Buddha would not arise. Same with nirvana or samsara too. Samsara is empty of inherent existence, but only because we're relating to something that's opposite to all of our suffering, to all of our experiences, to our own impermanence, death, everything that we do not desire, right? That becomes then labeled as nirvana. So to see phenomena as empty is to see them as mental constructs, not existing from their own side, but as dreamlike experiences, as illusion, as mirages. And so, since phenomena are empty of nature, by nature, they are ultimately then neither arise nor cease. It's all dreamlike. In a dream, things rise and see, right? Those appearances in a dream look very real until you recognize that this is only a dream. But for as long as you don't recognize them, they look very real. And your feelings that arise in the dream are very real. You may sweat from fear. You may experience great pleasure if you are engaging in some pleasant sexual intercourse or what, right? So all of these feelings, even bodily sensations, emotions, everything arise. And yet those images and experiences, the same applies to waking state. It looks so real. And our suffering is real, right? And yet it's nothing there. So therefore, then everything that appears to us is a conditioned phenomenon. And being conditioned phenomenon is emptiness. So an emptiness then is also conditioned in a way, this idea of emptiness. We wouldn't talk about emptiness if there are no phenomena, if there is no form, like a computer in front of me, right? I wouldn't talk about the emptiness of a computer. Because if or your desk or a chair on you sit, it's a chair or a desk, because we all conventionally agreed to call it that way because of the function that it does, right? And chair is a chair, or if you're sitting on the floor on a cushion, you call it a seat, right? Or you call it a cushion because of its function. But there is no some cushionness or chairness in a chair on which you sit. If you take it to the physics lab and you deconstruct it to its neutrons, you won't see little red chairs or whatever at home your chair is on which you're sitting right now, right? You wouldn't see little chairs in, right? So there is no chairness in them, right? Which means, again, it is simply, we have all agreed to this object we call a chair. And the chair had somebody who made it and had these ingredients. If I just remove parts of this chair, it will no longer be a chair. If I just, my chair has wheels. So if I take a wheel from my chair, wheels from my chair, if I look at that wheel, it will not longer be a chair, right? And it is a part of a chair. So then where is chairness? Chairness should have been even in that wheel. So nowhere, right? So, which means that even emptiness is empty of inherent existence. Even emptiness is only in relation to all other phenomena. It cannot be found apart from those phenomena. So, because when a chair completely vanishes, then emptiness of the chair is not there. So therefore, remember that emptiness is not some kind of a thing. It is simply manner in which things exist.
One of the things someone wanted to ask is if you can elaborate a little bit on the relationship in a Buddhist perspective between emptiness and compassion.
Oh, very,
Because often
very
that's talked about together.
Relationship and profound question, right? Now, someone may wonder, well, if I realized that these beings in suffering, who are now experiencing suffering, are not truly existent, but only conventionally existent, right? And that their suffering is also empty of inherent existence. Why would I feel compassion? Where is the place for compassion there, right? Well, compassion and emptiness are really not two things. A person who realizes emptiness also knows that those who have not yet realized emptiness are subject to that ignorance and their suffering is real. It is just like if you have a child or a dear to you who is sleeping in a bed next to you or in the same room, and it's crying in a dream or moaning, or you can see that this person is having a terrible nightmare. What do? You wake them up, right? Even though you know that whatever they're experiencing in their dream, it's not real, but their suffering in that dream is real. To them, at that time, it's real. So it means one still cultivates compassion, because for everybody who is suffering, that suffering is real. And then, so emptiness and compassion are not two separate. It is says that those who have fully realized emptiness, the compassionate is actually much stronger. And why it's so? Because they don't grasp onto this I. They're willing to make great sacrifices for the sake and benefit and happiness of others. That's for as long as we grasp onto the I, that self-cherishing arises. Buddha said in early Pali Sutta, Buddha says, all of our suffering is based in self-cherishing. That all of our life is based on protecting this I, cherishing this I over the others. But when we understand that I am as much empty of, that this, what I think as I, this mind-body complex is empty of inherent existence, right? Then fear disappears. And what here to guard? Why am I more special than anybody else? Then there is this, what they called equality of all phenomena is realized. I am not better or worse than others. We are all in that sense equal. And just as my suffering and my well-being, I am cherished. My suffering, I don't wish suffering. And I mean, you have done it in your practices every week when you meet on Mondays, right? You have done this loving kindness. Basis of this is really emptiness. If what makes me more special than others, right? Why is so just as I wish happiness for others, I wish to eliminate, I wish to give happiness to others. And just as I wish to eliminate my suffering, I want to eliminate, because we are equally, that equanimity, that force, divine attitude or Brahma Vihara makes all other Brahma Viharas perfect. Without it, others are never totally perfect. Perfection of the other Brahma Viharas come from this realization of equality. I am not better or worse than others, and others are not better or worse, right? So, and that's by understanding emptiness, you understand this equality. That is, it says that bodhisattvas who understand emptiness are willing to sacrifice themselves for the benefit of others. What's there to cherish, to be something special than others? But also to understand that compassion, the right true compassion, the sublime compassion arises from emptiness. Emptiness gives also wisdom to compassion. I can feel sadness for others and feel compassion for others, and I may want to help them dearly, and yet I may lack wisdom. And wisdom gives you method. How? What is the best way? What is the most efficient way to eliminate the suffering of a particular being in a particular situation? And that comes from understanding emptiness. So which means compassion by itself is not sufficient. I may, out of very good will, actually harm somebody out of ignorance. Ignorance that does not see the true nature of reality, the ignorance that doesn't know the method. But from realizing emptiness, I have realized the wisdom. And that wisdom will tell me for each situation, what is the best way to alleviate suffering of another being or a group of beings. So there are two sides or two aspects of a same mind, of a same awareness. That's why they're said to be the two wings of a bird. Bird can't fly with one wing, right? Needs two wings.
Thank you. That was fantastic. I appreciate it. Can you explain how karma it continues from life to life through rebirths if things are empty? Why does something like karma exist and result in rebirths?
Excellent.
And how is it finally extinguished?
That's an excellent question, and it has, throughout the history of Buddhism, different Buddhist traditions have given slightly different answer. So let's quickly start with the earliest answer is now that karma, whether it's mental, physical, verbal, creates some, they're called in Sanskrit, in Pali, they're called the Vasanas. Vasana means, actually it means a perfume, but not in a good sense. It means like a smell, right? So that they leave something smelly, so to speak, right? If you like it, they leave some traces, like a baby diaper, even after you washed it, it may still leave some, right? These are called habitual propensities or imprints that are left on the mind. But now I said earlier that mind is not some kind of permanent entity, that mind is a series of events, cognitive events. One moment of awareness arises, and that as this moment of awareness ceases, next moment of awareness arises. And then when that one ceases, another moment of awareness arises. So they're going like this. And then, so actually what we have only in that very 1 trillion moment of awareness, actually, we have this one moment of awareness, present moment of awareness. Past is gone, future hasn't yet occurred. So we only have a present, that one present moment of awareness. But because our mind is still dull, we don't see how these moments cease and rise, right? To us, it looks like it's one thing. Now, then karma is transferred, it is said, in early Buddhism, like this, from one moment of awareness goes to another. But because there is a sequence, there is this flow, right? Of one arising and ceasing, one arising and ceasing. And then there is this sense, we have a sense of continuity. So what happens then, that these traces, these, call it imprints, go along, travel along the series of moments of awareness, transferred from one moment to another. And then this moment, these imprints, these traces kind of conditioned our behavior, conditioned in the next life, right? How we think, how we react to things. If I'm somebody who is impatient, and some people said, oh, I've been impatient all my life, right? And I know how to deal with that or so on. Where did it come from? That imprint came from before. And from that, from impatience, anger always arises. That is a primary mental affliction that arises from impatience, right? So some people say, prone to anger. Prone to anger, and each time, if I'm prone to anger, then each time when I actually act angry, when I get angry, that imprint gets stronger and stronger, right? And then in the next life, it will be even stronger. So if I don't deal today right? Now with my impatience and my anger, it will only get stronger. So the goal is to diminish those imprints, to work, which means require self-honesty, introspection, and seeing what are my mental afflictions and how then I can diminish them. I have to work on with that because these are habits, they're like actions, and that needs to be dealt with. We need to first be self-honest, recognize them, because no, like anger, I'm taking anger as an example, but can be any negative imprint, right? Mm, Nobody gets up in the morning and says, oh, I can't wait to get angry. I really love getting angry. Nobody does it. Or, oh, I can't wait today to get jealous. Who wants it? Nobody. This is suffering. This is mental suffering, right? And we don't choose it. And yet this kind of negative mental reactions to events around us happen. So that's how karma is accumulated, and they give us suffering. And then when I get angry and I suffer, and somebody reacts with the same time, then I blame them, right? And then I engage in negative karma, and that negative karma gives me suffering, and this is how it goes. So to eliminate negative karma, one first has to work with one's own mind, right? And following at least following the basic ethical principles. By diminishing this, one diminishes karmic imprints, and then eventually, but that's not enough, right? This is where emptiness becomes our understanding, some kind of separate, independent, autonomous I. Because for as long as there is grasping onto the I, there will be problems. We'll cherish our feelings, we'll cherish our views. If somebody takes our view, we are ready to punch them, right? And so then what do? We are caught up all the time. So all of that can diminish it, but cannot eradicate it. Therefore, understanding, getting wisdom, developing wisdom of the true nature of phenomena, of the true nature of myself would be true nature, that I am a process, that I am an event of changing event, and nothing more. And everybody else and everything else is just like that, a series of events. So if my bikes break, somebody steal it, it's okay. It's not I, it's not mine. Ultimately, it was never mine, So, but what eradicates these seeds, we can diminish those seeds, but we cannot eradicating without wisdom that recognizes emptiness of all phenomena.
So that's the
And of
path.
course, in the Tantra, they have a different explanations, but we don't have time for it.
We don't have. So that's the path. That's basically Dharma practice. Is
yeah, exactly.
Is moving in that direction. One of our students asked, "How does one know when they've realized emptiness and it is not just an illusion of mind?"
Oh, that's good. Also, very good question. There are different levels of realization of emptiness. One can, through study and analysis, by simply analyzing things, deconstructing things, look in not finding self. That could be one level of realization, which will immediately study diminished one's mental afflictions. But then there are much deeper levels of realization and deeper, and there is ultimate level of realizing emptiness. And so the less grasping, the more happiness, the less mental afflictions are arising. You already know something is happening there. If you're just going carelessness doesn't mean, okay, like an indifference, I don't care. Because that doesn't lead, that's not realization of emptiness. It just means indifference, carelessness. It doesn't mean caring for others, cherishing others as cherishing yourself. So realization of emptiness is when you feel equanimity in no matter what's happening to you. You have complete equanimity. Well-being is always present, no matter what. Whether people blame you for something you haven't done, abuse you, there is, praise you, complete equanimity and complete sense of well-being. Not happy. If nobody gives you anything, you are happy. Somebody gives you happy. You are not, oh, wow, I got it, right? No grasping onto anything. Not starting not to see, starting seeing duality and non-duality, that sense of duality between yourself and the world diminishes. And when that has completely diminished, you have not realized emptiness. Because emptiness, realization of emptiness is a realization of non-duality. So there are different levels in which one can kind of test it, right?
Right. Does that relate to the Heart Sutra? Right.
Yeah, Heart Sutra, 8,000 line Perfection of Wisdom Sutra is basically shows the path, how step by step what you are realizing, right?
Well, I have one last question. It's a little bit off topic, but it's kind of interesting as well. Are Buddhists atheists?
Question could be yes and no. Buddhists, you could say Buddhists are atheists in one sense. In a sense, the Buddhists don't believe that there is a one ultimate creator who is completely separate from its creation. That world comes into existence, the samsara, the world that we know it, with all its cosmic systems and so on, right, has been here since beginningless time. The sentient beings here has been since beginningless time. That world comes into existence due to causes and conditions, which are karma, collective karma of sentient beings, and that collective, and these elements, earth, water, fire, and wind, right? And these element, how to say, this karma of sentient beings can also bring a world to its dissolution, to its end, right? So that karma is like this motor and that works. And in the center of that karma is our spiritual ignorance and mental afflictions, right? So, because Buddhists believe that if you call somebody something as a creator of the universe, as a God, Ishvara, then he cannot be separate from the elements of earth, water, fire, and wind, which means he too is conditioned. That God creator is also made of the elements. Otherwise, where would the elements come from? If God has created solid earth, water, fire, wind, space elements, then it means he must have them. That creator would be subject to everything as we are subject. And if you believe that there is a creator as a God who is as a creator of the universe, then you can blame him for your suffering. Why he didn't create a different kind of world in which ignorance, mental afflictions, negative karma would not be possibility, right? But here, according to Buddhism, there is no one else to blame. It's your responsibility. If you're angry, if other person has done something stupid, not considerate, or is deluded and has the wrong views, that's their problem. But your responsibility for your suffering is yours. You have choice to get angry or not. But we act and live as if we have no choice, like we can't help ourselves, but got angry, right? Or jealous, or malicious, name it. So from that point of view, Buddhists don't believe in God as an independent, unchanging creator.
Right.
But do they believe into entities that are more knowledgeable, more enlightened than um, ordinary sentient being? Yes.
Yeah.
Um, this could be Buddhas, but Buddhas uh, are not entities. Buddhas are simply all pervasive mind, which is nothing other but love and compassion that permeates the minds of all sentient beings, which is limitless like space. So if you think of God in that way, maybe then you would say, oh, okay, maybe they do believe in the God that I believe.
Yeah. So,
Depends what kind of God one believes.
right.
There are Buddhas, there are Bodhisattvas, right, who are engaged with their compassion in this world, but who are not creators of the world,
Yeah.
and whose compassion and love and wisdom are always available. So in that regard, some people, I know some Christians, very devout Christians, who believe in that kind of God. They don't believe in a God who has a big long beard, sits on a throne, and a river of fire flows in front of him, and he says, okay, punish this one, put that one in a purgatory, and put this one in a hell, and put this one in a heaven, right? And who is not like an old man judge, but who believe in a different kind of God who is present, who whispers in their hearts, and as they're conscious, uh, and tells them to choose the right over wrong, or Then, if you think that as a God, then maybe you could think, for you that is God, then you could say yes, Buddhism has a God, but not as an independent uh, God who somehow came up with the elements and then put them into mud and made a man and a woman.
Sokni Rinpoche said when he was asked that, said the Buddhists believe in the nature of God, but not the concept of God, which I thought was an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
It's kind of what you just said. But um, on that note, thank you. So, I can't thank you enough on behalf of all the participants today. We really, are very grateful for your time. This was incredibly informative and enlightening, and I can't thank you enough, Vesna. I really
No,
appreciate
my
it.
pleasure. Thank you. And my honor to be with all of you, although I can see Michael only, I don't see everybody else, but it's wonderful. It seems like a very international group. And from what I saw, a message chat on a chat that they were sending to each other during prayers, it seems you have already become friends and Sangha in your own right. So I wish you all the best and success in your study and practice, and very happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. We will dedicate the merit that we generated today with the closing prayer. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Once again, thank you very much, Vesna. I hope to see you soon. And
My pleasure, Michael.
thank you. Take care.
Yes,
Thank you, Nick, our producer, Nick Solidio, for his hard work and dedication to this class. And thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you next time.